The letter trembled in Jessica Mitchell's hands as she sat at her kitchen table, the words blurring through her tears. Stage 4. Terminal. 6 months, at best. The single mother of 3 stared at her empty refrigerator, the stack of unpaid medical bills, and the foreclosure notice taped to her front door. "Mommy, I'm hungry," whispered 5-year-old Emma, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "When are we going to eat?" Jessica forced a smile she didn't feel. "Soon, baby. Mommy just needs to figure some things out." But there was nothing left to figure out. The chemotherapy had drained her savings, the missed work had cost her job, and now the cancer was taking what remained of her strength. At 34, Jessica Mitchell was running out of time, options, and hope. With trembling fingers, she opened her laptop and typed a desperate message to a local community forum. "Single mom with stage 4 cancer needs help for her children. I don't know where else to turn." She hit send, then closed her eyes, exhausted by even this small effort. Jessica had no way of knowing that her simple plea would reach Mike Bear Rawlins, president of the Steel Wolves Motorcycle Club, or that within hours her message would be shared across every biker network in 3 states. By dawn, the rumble of engines would announce the arrival of an army on wheels, 900 strong, with leather vests, tattooed arms, and hearts bigger than their Harleys. Would you like to witness how a community of bikers transformed a dying mother's final months? Subscribe now to join us for an incredible journey of compassion, strength, and unexpected brotherhood. Chapter 1. The Cavalry Arrives. Jessica Mitchell had always been the strong one, the resilient one, the one who handled everything life threw at her with quiet determination and a steadfast smile. When her husband walked out 6 years ago, leaving her with 3 children and a mountain of debt, she had picked up extra shifts at the hospital where she worked as a nurse. When the roof leaked, she learned to patch it herself. When the car broke down, she watched YouTube videos until she could fix it. But stage 4 pancreatic cancer, that was an enemy she couldn't outwork, outthink, or outlast. Dr. Reynolds had delivered the diagnosis with gentle compassion 3 months ago. "With aggressive treatment, we might buy you some time," he'd explained. "But you need to start putting affairs in order, Jessica, especially for the children." The children. 12-year-old Tyler, 8-year-old Lily, and little Emma, just 5. What would happen to them when she was gone? Her parents had passed years ago. Her only sister lived overseas with a husband who had made it clear he had no interest in raising his nieces and nephew. Jessica had fought the cancer with everything she had, enduring brutal rounds of chemotherapy that left her too weak to work. The medical leave had turned permanent when the side effects became too severe to function. Then the bills began piling up. The refrigerator grew emptier, the mortgage payments were missed. Now, sitting at her kitchen table in the flickering light of a lamp, the electricity was scheduled to be cut off tomorrow. Jessica felt the weight of failure crushing her. She hadn't been able to pick Tyler up from baseball practice today. Lily had gone to school in shoes, with holes, because there was no money for new ones. And Emma, sweet Emma, was hungry, and there wasn't enough food for breakfast tomorrow. The online community forum had been a last resort. Jessica wasn't one to ask for help, and certainly not publicly. But desperation had pushed her past pride. "I don't need much for myself," she had written, "but my children will need support when I'm gone. If anyone knows of resources, jobs my oldest could do, or assistance programs, I would be grateful for information." She hadn't expected much. Perhaps links to government programs she'd already investigated, or well-meaning but ultimately unhelpful suggestions. What she certainly hadn't expected was the immediate private message from someone named Bear. "I'm Mike Rawlins, president of the Steel Wolves MC. We help community members in crisis. This isn't charity, it's what neighbors do for each other. Can I call you?" Jessica had hesitated, her finger hovering over the keyboard. Motorcycle club? Like a biker gang? But something in the straightforward message gave her pause. After a moment's consideration, she had typed her phone number. 5 minutes later, Her phone rang. If you're enjoying the story, write from which city you are listening to in the comments. Ms. Mitchell, Mike Rawlins here. The voice was deep, gravelly, but surprisingly gentle. I understand you're facing some tough times. That's one way to put it, Jessica had replied, attempting humor despite everything. Tell me what you need, not what you want, not what you think we might provide. What do you and your kids actually need right now? The directness of the question broke through her carefully maintained composure. Food in the refrigerator. The electricity bill paid. Someone to drive Tyler to baseball while I'm at chemo. Time with my children before She couldn't finish the sentence. Got it, Mike said simply. Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow morning, some of my brothers and sisters are going to stop by. They'll bring groceries and handle that electricity bill. We'll figure out the rest from there. I can't accept... Ms. Mitchell, Mike interrupted gently. Everyone needs help sometimes, even the strongest among us. The Steel Wolves look after our community. Let us do this. After the call ended, Jessica had sat staring at her phone, torn between desperate hope and skepticism. It seemed too good to be true. A few bikers bringing groceries. It would help, certainly, but how much difference could it really make in the overwhelming disaster her life had become? Now, as the first light of dawn filtered through the worn curtains, Jessica jerked awake at her kitchen table. She hadn't meant to fall asleep there, but exhaustion had claimed her. The children were still in bed, small mercies. She needed to figure out breakfast, needed to call the electricity company and beg for one more extension, needed to... The distinctive rumble of motorcycle engines broke the morning quiet. Not one motorcycle, not even a few. The sound built until it seemed to vibrate through the small house, a rolling thunder that brought Jessica unsteadily to her feet. She moved to the front window, pushing aside the curtain to see a sight that made her breath catch. Motorcycles lined her street as far as she could see, hundreds of them. Riders in leather vests were parking in organized rows, dismounting, removing helmets. Men and women of all ages, some with grey beards or weathered faces, others young and tattooed. All wearing vests with a distinctive emblem, a wolf's head above crossed wrenches. A massive man with a salt and pepper beard approached her front door. Despite his intimidating size, his knock was almost gentle. Jessica opened the door with trembling hands. Ms. Mitchell, I'm Mike Rawlins. We spoke on the phone last night. Folks call me Bear. He offered a hand that dwarfed hers when she shook it. Hope we didn't wake the kids. No, they're still asleep, Jessica managed. But I thought you said some of your brothers and sisters would come. This looks like... D-917 at last count, Bear said with a slight smile. When word got out that one of our nurses needed help, chapters from 3 states responded. Nurses have taken care of our people more times than we can count. Time to return the favor. Jessica stared past him at the sea of motorcycles and leather. I don't understand. Why would all these people care about us? They don't even know me. Not everyone needs a reason to do the right thing, Ms. Mitchell. Sometimes folks just show up because they can. Bear gestured to a woman approaching with a clipboard. This is Valerie, our club secretary. She's coordinating everything. Valerie, a striking woman in her 40s with streaks of silver in her dark hair, offered a warm smile. We've divided into teams, she explained efficiently. Team 1 is handling immediate needs, groceries, bill payments, and house repairs. Team 2 is setting up a transportation schedule for your son's baseball and your medical appointments. Team 3 is working on longer-term support systems for the children. Jessica felt her knees weaken. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, Valerie assured her. Just tell us where to start. Before Jessica could respond, a truck pulled up behind the motorcycles. The side panel read, Jackson's Electricians, 24/7 emergency service. A man in work clothes jumped out, toolbox in hand. That's my husband Rick, Valerie explained. He heard your electricity might be shut off today. He'll make sure that doesn't happen. As if on cue, another vehicle arrived. A grocery delivery van. Bikers immediately formed a line to unload boxes and bags, passing them from hand to hand toward the house. Mom, "What's happening?" Tyler's voice came from behind Jessica. Her oldest son stood in the doorway, eyes wide as he took in the scene before him. "If you've watched this far, say in the comments, what secret do you keep?" "These people are here to help us," Jessica said, her voice breaking slightly. "Are they a gang?" Tyler asked, his expression somewhere between worry and fascination. Bear chuckled. "Motorcycle club, young man. Big difference." Over the next few hours, Jessica watched in stunned disbelief as her world transformed. The refrigerator and pantry were stocked with enough food to last weeks. Rick the electrician not only prevented the electricity from being shut off, but upgraded the home's aging electrical panel. "A safety issue," he'd explained, waving away Jessica's protests. In the backyard, a team of bikers was repairing the damaged fence and rickety backsteps that Jessica had been meaning to fix for months. Another group was in the garage, where they appeared to be servicing her old car, which had been making ominous noises for weeks. Inside, Lily and Emma had overcome their initial shyness and were now the centers of attention. A female rider named Sky was braiding Lily's hair while teaching her the proper way to wrap the handlebar of a motorcycle with leather grip tape. Emma sat on the living room floor, surrounded by 3 enormous tattooed men who were having a tea party with her stuffed animals, complete with pinky fingers extended as they sipped from tiny plastic cups. "Your little one has excellent tea party etiquette," observed one of the men seriously to Jessica. "She'd make a fine negotiator someday." Tyler had disappeared outside with a group of younger riders who were teaching him basic motorcycle maintenance, with Jessica's nervous permission and under strict supervision. By midday, someone had fired up a grill in the driveway. The scent of barbecue filled the air as bikers' neighbors, who had tentatively emerged to investigate the commotion, and the Mitchell family gathered to eat. What had started as a frightening invasion of strangers had somehow transformed into an impromptu block party. Jessica found herself seated at a folding table beside Bear, watching in amazement as her children laughed and played, temporarily free from the shadow that had hung over the family for months. "I still don't understand," she said quietly. "Why go to all this trouble for people you don't know?" Bear was silent for a moment, his massive hands carefully cutting a hamburger into tiny pieces for a neighboring toddler whose mother was filling plates for older children. 10 years ago, he finally said, my wife Cheryl was diagnosed with breast cancer, stage 4 by the time they caught it. I was working 2 jobs, we had a mortgage, 3 teenagers. I thought I could handle it all myself." He shook his head. "Pride, stubbornness, nearly killed me along with her." Jessica listened silently, understanding all too well. "One day I just broke down. Middle of a store, just started crying and couldn't stop. A woman found me. Turned out she was from a support group for cancer families. She got me help, connected me with resources, brought meals when I couldn't think straight enough to cook." Bear looked up, meeting Jessica's gaze. "She saved our family, not Cheryl. The cancer took her anyway. But the rest of us would have fallen apart without that help." "I'm so sorry," Jessica said softly. "Don't be. Cheryl had 9 good months after that. Months where she wasn't worrying about bills or whether the kids had clean clothes. Months where she could just be with us." Bear's voice grew rough with emotion. "After she passed, I promised myself I'd pay it forward. The Steel Wolves had always done charity rides, toy runs, that sort of thing. But after Cheryl, we got serious about direct support. If you're enjoying the story, write from which city you are listening to in the comments." A young woman approached their table, her Steel Wolves vest adorned with medical patches. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm Denise. I'm an oncology nurse at Memorial." She offered her hand. "Several of us work in healthcare. We've been talking, and with your permission, we'd like to review your treatment plan, maybe get some second opinions. Sometimes fresh eyes catch things." Jessica felt a flutter of hope she hadn't allowed herself in weeks. "You'd do that?" "Absolutely, and we have connections with some specialists who might be willing to consult." Denise's expression was professional but kind. "I don't want to offer false hope." "I understand," Jessica interrupted, "but I'd appreciate any insights." As Denise left, a man in a steel wolf's vest approached with a laptop. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm Jackson, Valerie's brother. I'm a financial advisor. If you're comfortable, I'd like to help you organize your affairs and explore options for the children's future." The afternoon continued in this vein, with members of the motorcycle club offering specific skills and expertise. A legal aid attorney to help with guardianship paperwork, a contractor to assess necessary home repairs, a teacher to discuss educational support for the children. By evening, Jessica was overwhelmed, not just by the practical assistance, but by the realization that she was no longer facing this journey alone. As the sun began to set, many of the bikers prepared to depart, though Bear assured her that a core group would remain nearby. "We've rented a block of rooms at the motel down the street," he explained. "Rotation teams will be available for whatever you need: driving to appointments, help with the kids, household repairs. And every rider here today has contributed to a support fund for your family." He handed her an envelope. Inside was a debit card and information for an account that had been established in her name. "There's enough there to cover the mortgage for 6 months, plus utilities and basic expenses," Bear said quietly. "No strings, no expectations, just breathing room." "I can't accept this," Jessica protested, though her fingers clutched the envelope tightly. "You can and you will," Bear said firmly. "Not for yourself, for them." He nodded toward Tyler, Lily, and Emma, who were saying goodbye to their new friends with hugs and promises to ride again soon under proper supervision and safety gear, the bikers assured Jessica. "Your job now is to focus on your health and your time with those kids," Bear continued. "Let us handle the rest. That's what community does." As the majority of the motorcycles departed in a thunderous procession, Jessica stood in her driveway with her children, watching them go. The day had brought practical help beyond anything she could have imagined, but something else too, something she had lost months ago. Hope. Not hope for a cure. Jessica was too medically knowledgeable to deceive herself about her prognosis, but hope that her children would be cared for. Hope that her remaining time could be spent making memories rather than worrying about bills. Hope that even in her absence, there would be a community watching over her family. "Mom, are they coming back tomorrow?" Emma asked, her small hand slipping into Jessica's. "Some of them, yes," Jessica replied, squeezing her daughter's fingers gently. "Good," Emma said with the simple acceptance of a 5-year-old. "I like them, especially Mr. Bear. He does all the voices when he reads stories." Jessica smiled, picturing the enormous, intimidating biker president creating character voices for Emma's favorite books. "He's pretty special, isn't he?" "He said he's going to teach me to ride a bike without training wheels," Tyler added. "A regular bike," he clarified, seeing his mother's expression. "He said motorcycles are for when I'm older and have the proper respect for the power of the machine." "That sounds like good advice," Jessica acknowledged, leading her children back inside their home, a home that now had a full refrigerator, functioning electricity, and a sense of security it had lacked just 12 hours earlier. If you've watched this far, say in the comments, what secret do you keep? That night, after the children were asleep, Jessica sat at her kitchen table once again. But instead of bills and despair, she was surrounded by notebooks filled with plans, schedules, and contact information. The Steel Wolves had created a comprehensive support system: daily help for household tasks, transportation for the kids' activities and Jessica's treatments, and longer-term arrangements for the children's care. A soft knock at the back door startled her. Bear stood outside, his massive frame somehow less intimidating, now that she had watched him patiently play tea party with her youngest. "Sorry to disturb you," he said when she let him in. "Just wanted to check if you need anything before the night crew takes over." "Night crew?" Bear nodded. "2 of our members will be parked outside all night, just in case you need anything. We'll rotate shifts." "That's not necessary," Jessica began, but Bear held up a hand. "Peace of mind has healing properties, Ms. Mitchell. Let us do this." Jessica nodded, too exhausted and grateful to argue. "Thank you for everything today. It's beyond anything I could have imagined. It's just the beginning, Bear assured her. Tomorrow we start on the basement leak and that roof that's seen better days. Day after that, we get your son to his baseball game in style. As Bear turned to leave, Jessica found herself asking the question that had been on her mind all day. Your wife, Cheryl, you said the help you received gave her 9 good months. 9 months where she could just be with her family without worrying about everything else. Bear nodded, waiting. Was it worth it? Accepting help from strangers? Letting go of the control? Bear's weathered face softened. Those 9 months are why our kids are okay today. Why they remember their mother's laughter instead of just her illness. Why they knew, without doubt, that they were the center of her world. He met Jessica's gaze steadily. Yes, Ms. Mitchell, it was worth every second. After Bear left, Jessica went to her children's rooms, watching them sleep. Tyler with his baseball glove still clutched in one hand, Lily surrounded by motorcycle magazines the female riders had given her, Emma cuddling the new stuffed wolf that had mysteriously appeared among her toys. For the first time since her diagnosis, Jessica allowed herself to think not about what they would lose, but about what they could still have. Time, memories, love unburdened by constant worry. The following weeks fell into a rhythm that would have seemed impossible before the steel wolves arrived. Each day brought a small team of bikers who handled household tasks, repairs and transportation, while Jessica focused on her treatments and her children. Denise, the oncology nurse, had coordinated a review of Jessica's medical records with specialists who suggested modifications to her treatment plan. While no one used the word remission, Jessica's doctors noted improved response to the adjusted protocols. The stress reduction alone probably accounts for some improvement, Dr. Reynolds commented during a checkup 4 weeks after the biker's arrival. Your blood pressure is down, sleep quality improved. Sometimes the body can focus more energy on healing when it's not constantly in fight or flight mode. The steel wolves' presence had transformed not just Jessica's household, but the entire neighborhood. Initial wariness had given way to acceptance, and then active participation as neighbors witnessed the bikers' respectful, organized support. Mrs. Henderson from across the street, who had initially closed her curtains at the sight of motorcycles, now regularly baked cookies for the rotation boys, as she called them. Mr. Abernathy, a retired teacher who had barely spoken to Jessica before, volunteered to tutor Tyler in math and took Lily to her weekly library visits. 6 weeks after that first morning when 900 bikers had appeared on her street, Jessica sat on her newly repaired back porch, watching Emma and Lily play in the yard with Sky and another female rider who had become regular presences in the girls' lives. Tyler was at baseball practice, driven there by Bear, who had not missed a single game. Valerie sat beside Jessica, updating her on recent developments. The trust for the children is fully established, she explained. It will cover education expenses through college, plus basic support for their guardian. Jessica nodded, the guardian question being one of the most difficult she had faced. With no immediate family able to take the children, she had been forced to consider alternatives. Ultimately, a solution had emerged from an unexpected quarter. Jamie called this morning, Valerie continued, referring to a cousin of Jessica's who had reconnected after learning of her illness. She and her husband have completed the first phase of certification to become foster parents. They're on track to be approved well before... She trailed off, delicately. Before I'm gone, Jessica finished. She had grown comfortable with the reality of her prognosis, even as she fought for every additional day. It's still hard to believe. Jamie and I weren't even in contact until the Steel Wolves found her. Family connections matter, Valerie said simply. Sometimes they just need a little help remembering that. If you're enjoying the story, write from which city you are listening to in the comments. The transformation in Jessica's cousin had been remarkable. Once located by the Steel Wolves network, Jamie had been hesitant but not unwilling. After meeting the children and reconnecting with Jessica, something had shifted. The prospect of providing a home for her cousin's children had awakened a maternal instinct Jamie hadn't realized she possessed. "I think she'll be wonderful with them," Jessica said softly. "Tyler already texts her about his games, and Emma asked if she could call her Aunt Jamie instead of just Jamie. The kids will have her and Derek, plus the entire Steel Wolves extended family," Valerie assured her. "Speaking of which, the Education Committee wanted me to run something by you." Jessica had learned that the Steel Wolves operated various specialized committees focused on different aspects of community support. The Education Committee coordinated tutoring, school advocacy, and scholarship opportunities. "Tyler's baseball coach mentioned his pitching talent to Bear," Valerie explained. "The Education Committee has connections with a baseball development program, summer camps, specialized coaching, that sort of thing. With your approval, they'd like to sponsor Tyler's participation." Jessica felt the now familiar surge of gratitude mixed with disbelief. "That's incredibly generous." "It's an investment in potential," Valerie said practically, and Lily's art teacher reached out about a weekend visual arts program, similar sponsorship available if she's interested. These conversations had become routine, opportunities and support appearing almost magically for her children, coordinated by the extensive network of bikers who had adopted the Mitchell family as their own. "Sometimes I still can't believe all this is real," Jessica admitted. "That one desperate post led to all of you." Valerie's expression grew serious. "You know what the patch on our vests means? The wolf's head with the wrenches?" Jessica shook her head. "Wolves protect their pack with everything they have. The wrenches represent fixing what's broken." Valerie smiled slightly. "We take those symbols seriously. When someone in our community needs protection or something needs fixing, we show up. That's who we are." As the weeks continued to pass, Jessica found herself defying the original 6-month prognosis. While the cancer remained, her body had responded better than expected to the modified treatment protocol. Dr. Reynolds cautiously suggested they might be looking at a year rather than months. "A gift of time," he called it during one appointment. "Use it well." Jessica intended to do exactly that. With the Steel Wolves handling practical concerns and Jamie preparing to eventually take the children, Jessica focused entirely on creating memories and strengthening her children's emotional foundations for the journey ahead. The bikers, understanding this mission perfectly, became facilitators of experiences. When Jessica mentioned Tyler's fascination with professional baseball, tickets to a major league game mysteriously appeared, along with transportation and accommodations. When Lily expressed interest in horseback riding, weekly lessons were arranged. When Emma wondered what the ocean looked like, a weekend beach trip materialized, complete with a beachfront rental, accessible enough for Jessica's increasingly limited mobility. Through it all, the Steel Wolves remained present, but never intrusive, a safety net that allowed Jessica to focus on living rather than simply surviving. Bear, who had become something of a father figure to the children, was particularly careful to support without overstepping. "They have a father, even if he's not in the picture," he explained to Jessica when she commented on his thoughtful approach with Tyler. "I'm not trying to replace anyone, just providing what's needed in the moment." What was needed often changed as Jessica's condition evolved. When fatigue made daily tasks impossible, more hands appeared to help. When pain made it difficult for her to climb stairs, her bedroom was relocated to the first floor, the space transformed overnight by efficient crews of leather-clad workers. If you've watched this far, say in the comments, what secret do you keep? 3 months after the Steel Wolves' arrival, Jessica celebrated her 35th birthday, a milestone she had quietly believed she wouldn't reach. The bikers transformed her backyard into a festival space, with strings of lights, a professional sound system, and enough food to feed the entire neighborhood, which, indeed, had been invited. As Jessica sat watching her children dance with their biker friends and neighborhood playmates, Bear approached with a small wrapped package. "From all of us," he said, placing it in her hands, "though it comes with a request." Jessica opened the gift to find a leather-bound journal, the cover embossed with her name and a small wolf design. "We've all seen how you're fighting to give your children everything they need before—" Bear paused. "But there's something else they'll need. Your voice, your wisdom, things you would tell them at 16 or 20, or when they have children of their own." Jessica ran her fingers over the journal's cover, understanding immediately. "We're asking you to write to them," Bear continued. "Letters they can read in the future, advice you would give, stories about yourself they might not remember, whatever you want them to know when you're not here to tell them directly." Tears filled Jessica's eyes. "I hadn't thought of that." "Cheryl did it for our kids," Bear said quietly. "Those letters, they've been a lifeline over the years. She's still parenting them in a way, even now." The journal became Jessica's constant companion over the following weeks, filling with letters, advice, and memories for her children to discover at different ages. The Steel Wolves, recognizing the importance of this project, ensured she had the energy and space to write by taking on even more household responsibilities. Meanwhile, the network of support continued to grow. What had begun with 900 bikers showing up one morning had evolved into an interconnected community of volunteers, professionals, and neighbors, all contributing to the Mitchell family's well-being. Jamie and her husband Derek became regular visitors, building relationships with the children while learning their routines and preferences. The transition planning was handled with sensitivity and openness, with Jessica fully involved in every decision. "We'll keep the house," Bear had assured her during one difficult conversation about the future. "The mortgage will be paid off. When the time comes, Jamie and Derek can move in rather than uprooting the kids." "Stability matters." Jessica had stared at him in shock. "Paid off? How is that possible?" "Remember that first day, 900 bikers, each contributing what they could." Bear shrugged, as if purchasing a home was a minor detail. "Plus some fundraising, corporate matching through members' employers, a benefit concert organized by that rider who turned out to be a session musician. It adds up." The concept that strangers, who had quickly become family, would ensure her children could remain in their home after she was gone was overwhelming. But it was just one of countless ways the Steel Wolves had transformed the Mitchell family's future, from one of uncertainty and struggle to one of security and support. By the 5-month mark, Jessica's health had begun to decline more rapidly. The gift of time Dr. Reynolds had mentioned was being spent richly, but it was running out. The cancer had spread despite the aggressive treatments, and Jessica made the difficult decision to transition to palliative care, focusing on quality of life rather than extending it at all costs. "I want to be present with them," she explained to Bear and Valerie. "Really present, not sedated or suffering through treatments that won't change the outcome." They supported her decision without question, adjusting the support network to accommodate her changing needs. Hospice nurses joined the rotation of helpers, their medical expertise complementing the practical assistance the bikers continued to provide. The autumn leaves had just begun to turn when Jessica received unexpected news. Her ex-husband Mark had reached out through his lawyer, expressing interest in reconnecting with the children. "After all this time," Jessica said disbelievingly, sitting in her garden with Bear. The Steel Wolves had transformed the space into a peaceful retreat where she could rest comfortably outdoors, with raised flower beds she could tend from her wheelchair on good days. "People change," Bear replied neutrally. "Or at least, they can. You don't sound convinced." Bear chose his words carefully. "I've seen many types of fathers in my time. Some rise to challenges, others run from them. The timing of his reappearance raises questions." Jessica nodded, similar thoughts having occurred to her. He probably heard about the house being paid off, the trust for the children. Possibly. Bear acknowledged, though I'd prefer to believe better of him. Uti, the Steel Wolves had conducted a discreet investigation into Mark's current circumstances, a standard precaution, they assured Jessica, whenever an absent parent suddenly reappeared. The results were mixed. He had remarried, established a successful business, and maintained sobriety after struggles with alcohol that had contributed to their divorce. But he had made no attempts to contact Jessica or the children in over 3 years, despite court-ordered child support payments that had been inconsistent at best. "What should I do?" Jessica asked, watching a butterfly land on one of the late-blooming flowers. "The children have a right to know their father." "They do," Bear agreed, "but you have a right to protect them too. Perhaps a middle path, supervised visits, starting with Tyler since he's oldest and has the clearest memories of Mark." This measured approach became the plan. Mark would meet Tyler first, with Jamie present as a neutral party. If that went well, gradual reintroduction to Lily and Emma would follow. The first meeting took place at a local park with Steel Wolves members inconspicuously positioned nearby, just in case, though they didn't anticipate problems. Jessica, too weak to attend, waited anxiously at home with Bear and Valerie. When Tyler returned, his expression was difficult to read. "He looks older," the boy said finally. "He asked a lot of questions about you, about the house, about the bikers." Jessica exchanged glances with Bear. "Did you have a good time?" Tyler shrugged. "It was okay. He wants to take me to a baseball game next week." The reconnection process continued cautiously. Mark met Lily, who had fewer memories of him but was naturally friendly. Emma, who had been an infant when he left, regarded him with the wary curiosity she showed all new adults. Throughout these meetings, the Steel Wolves maintained a respectful distance, but remained vigilant. Their concerns about Mark's motivations were partially allayed when he began contributing financially, not just resuming regular child support payments, but offering to help with Jessica's medical expenses. "I should have been here," he said during a rare moment alone with Jessica. "I was selfish, and I failed all of you." "Yes, you were, and yes, you did," Jessica agreed, too tired for anything but honesty. "But you're here now. That counts for something. If you're enjoying the story, write from which city you are listening to in the comments." As Jessica's condition deteriorated, an unexpected alliance formed. Mark, Jamie, and the Steel Wolves began working together, creating a transition plan that would provide the children with connections to both their father and their mother's chosen guardian after Jessica was gone. "They'll live with Jamie and Derek," Mark acknowledged during a planning session. "That's best for their stability, but I want to be in their lives consistently." Bear, representing the Steel Wolves' interests, nodded approvingly. "Regular visitation, shared holidays, open communication, we can make that work." Jessica, observing this conversation from her hospice bed that had been set up in the living room, felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The future she had feared most, her children adrift without support, had been transformed into a network of care that now included even their once absent father. As autumn deepened toward winter, Jessica's decline accelerated. The hospice nurse, a Steel Wolves member's sister who had volunteered specifically for Jessica's care, adjusted medications and provided comfort not just to Jessica, but to the entire household. The children, prepared as gently as possible for what was coming, had each found their own way of processing. Tyler spent hours sitting beside his mother, often doing homework or reading quietly, simply being present. Lily created artwork, dozens of drawings and paintings that she proudly displayed around Jessica's bed. Emma continued her tea parties, carefully including her mother even on days when Jessica could only watch from her pillows. Through it all, the Steel Wolves remained, a steady, supportive presence that had become so integrated into the family's life that it was difficult to remember a time before they had arrived. The daily rotation of helpers continued, but the focus had shifted from home repairs and practical assistance to emotional support and memory-making. One crisp November morning, Jessica woke to unusual sounds outside. Bear entered the living room, his expression both solemn and somehow joyful. "There's something you need to see," he said, gesturing toward the front of the house. With the help of the hospice nurse and 2 Steel Wolves members, Jessica was carefully transferred to a specialized wheelchair. Wrapped in warm blankets, she was wheeled to the front porch, where a remarkable sight awaited her. Motorcycles lined the street once again, hundreds of them, but this time they were decorated with white ribbons and flowers. Riders stood beside their bikes in formation, creating a path from the porch to a garden archway that had been erected at the end of the walkway. "What is this?" Jessica asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You mentioned once that you regretted not having a garden wedding," Bear explained. "That you and Mark had planned something simple with flowers and family, but ended up at the courthouse instead." Jessica nodded, the memories surfacing from conversations months ago. "Well, we thought your children deserved to see their mother as a bride, surrounded by beauty and people who love her." Bear gestured to the scene before them. "Not a wedding in the traditional sense, but a celebration of your life and your love for them." Tears filled Jessica's eyes as she understood. The Steel Wolves had created a ceremony not of marriage, but of legacy, a visual representation of the love and community that would surround her children long after she was gone. Tyler, Lily, and Emma emerged from the house, dressed in special outfits that somehow matched the garden theme perfectly. Tyler in a suit that made him look older than his 12 years, Lily in a flower girl dress with a crown of autumn blooms, and Emma in a dress adorned with butterfly appliques. "You look beautiful, Mom," Tyler said, his voice breaking slightly. "So do you," Jessica replied, reaching for his hand. "All of you." What followed was unlike any ceremony Jessica had ever witnessed. The children escorted her down the path between the motorcycles, where riders bowed their heads respectfully as she passed. At the garden arch, Bear waited with a small wooden chest. "This contains every promise made to your children," he explained as they gathered beneath the arch. "From Jamie and Derek, from Mark, from the Steel Wolves, from neighbors and teachers and every person who is committed to supporting them. If you've watched this far, say in the comments, what secret do you keep?" He opened the chest to reveal sealed envelopes, each labeled with a child's name and containing written commitments from the adults who would form their support network. "We vow that these promises will be kept," Bear continued, his deep voice carrying across the assembled crowd. "That your children will always be protected, supported, and loved. That they will never face life's challenges alone." The ceremony continued, with each child receiving a symbol of this commitment. Tyler a compass to always find his way home, Lily a sketchbook to continue creating beauty in the world, and Emma a small silver wolf pendant to remember she is always part of our pack. Jessica, too weak to stand but determined to participate fully, presented each child with letters from her journal. Not the future ones they would receive at milestone ages, but immediate ones expressing her love and hopes for them. As the ceremony concluded, the assembled bikers raised their right hands in a solemn salute, not the traditional raised fist of brotherhood, but an open palm representing protection and support. The weeks that followed were peaceful, filled with quiet moments rather than grand gestures. The Steel Wolves continued their daily presence, but with increased sensitivity to Jessica's failing energy and the children's emotional needs as they began the process of saying goodbye. Mark, having proven his commitment through consistent involvement, was now included in the rotation of support. Jamie and Derek stayed in the guest room more frequently, helping the children adjust to their eventual role as guardians. Christmas approached, a holiday Jessica had feared she wouldn't live to see. The Steel Wolves, determined to make it memorable, transformed the house with decorations that appeared overnight like a holiday miracle. A towering tree, lights outlining every window, garlands draped along the porch rails. "Too much?" Bear asked when Jessica first saw the display. We can tone it down. It's perfect, Jessica assured him, watching Emma's face light up at the sight of the tree. Absolutely perfect. On Christmas Eve, a special gathering took place. Not just the Steel Wolves who had become family, but every person who had contributed to the Mitchell family's journey over the past months. Neighbors, medical professionals, teachers, and friends who had appeared along the way. They came in shifts to avoid overwhelming Jessica, each bringing not gifts but memories, shared stories of moments with the children, photographs taken during activities, small mementos of experiences Jessica might not remember, but that had shaped her children's lives during this difficult time. You've created a tapestry, Dr. Reynolds commented when he visited, having become more than just Jessica's physician during her illness. Each person holding a thread that connects to your children. That's a remarkable legacy. Christmas Day itself was quieter, just the immediate family circle that now included Bear and Valerie, Jamie and Derek, and Mark, all of whom had set aside potential tensions to create a harmonious environment for the children's sake. Jessica, propped up with pillows on the hospice bed that had been moved near the Christmas tree, watched her children open gifts with a peaceful heart. The fear that had once consumed her, that they would be alone, unprotected, adrift, had been replaced with certainty that they would be surrounded by love and support. "Thank you," she said quietly to Bear, who sat beside her while the others helped the children assemble new toys. "For everything, for seeing a desperate message from a stranger and deciding to show up." "That's what we do," Bear replied simply. "See need, show up, stay until the job is done." "And when will this job be done?" Jessica asked, though she already knew the answer. Bear's weathered face softened with compassion. "Our commitment to your children is lifelong, but our promise to you was to ensure you could focus on them without worrying about everything else. That job will be complete when you are at peace. If you're enjoying the story, write from which city you are listening to in the comments. January brought cold winds and heavy snow, transforming the neighborhood into a winter wonderland that the children enjoyed, while Jessica watched from her window. Her decline had accelerated after Christmas, as if she had been holding on specifically for that milestone. The hospice nurse now visited daily, joined by a palliative care physician who ensured Jessica's comfort was maintained as her body began the final stages of letting go. The Steel Wolves adjusted their support accordingly, maintaining a respectful presence while creating space for the intimate family moments that now filled Jessica's days. "I'm not afraid anymore," she confided to Valerie during a quiet afternoon. The children were at school. Maintaining routine had been important to Jessica, and the house was peaceful. "I used to be terrified of leaving them. Now I know they'll be okay." "Better than okay," Valerie assured her. "They'll be extraordinary because they had you as their mother, and they'll always know your story, how fiercely you fought for them, how carefully you prepared for their future." The journal was complete now, filled with letters for birthdays, graduations, weddings, and moments of hardship or joy that Jessica anticipated in her children's futures. Along with it, the Steel Wolves had created a memory book documenting the past 7 months, photographs, stories, and mementos of the community that had formed around the Mitchell family. "Will you tell me about Cheryl?" Jessica asked unexpectedly. Bear mentioned her, but never in detail. Valerie's expression softened. "Cheryl was my best friend, college roommates, then nurses together. She introduced me to the motorcycle world when she met Bear." She smiled at the memory. "She was fearless, not just with the cancer, but in everything. The kind of person who would walk into a room full of strangers and leave with 10 new friends." "She sounds wonderful." She was, and in many ways this is all because of her. After she died, Bear channeled his grief into building the Steel Wolves support network. What began as a small operation helping cancer families has grown into... Valerie gestured broadly, encompassing everything the club had done for Jessica's family. "This A community dedicated to showing up when it matters most. As January gave way to February, Jessica's world contracted to the hospice bed and the people who gathered around it. The children spent increasing time with her, instinctively understanding that their moments together were becoming precious and finite. Tyler, showing maturity beyond his years, often read aloud from Jessica's favorite books. Lily created art while sitting beside her mother, describing each drawing in detail. Emma, still too young to fully comprehend what was happening, continued her tea parties with stuffed animals, arranged carefully on Jessica's bed. The steel wolves maintained their presence, but stepped back, creating space for these intimate family moments, while ensuring practical needs continued to be met. Meals appeared without disruption. The house remained clean and functioning. Transportation for the children's activities continued seamlessly. One snowy February morning, Jessica woke with a different kind of clarity, a sense that her time was measured now, not in weeks or days, but hours. She asked for the children to stay home from school and for her closest circle to gather. Bear, understanding the significance of the request, coordinated with Jamie, Derek, and Mark to create a gentle, supportive environment. The hospice nurse confirmed what Jessica already knew. The final transition was beginning. "I'm ready," Jessica told Bear when he arrived, the children playing quietly in the next room under Jamie's watchful eye. "But I need to ask one more thing of you." "Anything," Bear promised. "After I'm gone, tell my story," Jessica requested. "Not just to my children, but to others who might need to know that help can appear from unexpected places, that 900 bikers might show up overnight when a mother asks for help." "We will," Bear assured her. "Your story is already spreading through our network. Chapters in other states are establishing similar support systems for families in crisis." Jessica smiled, satisfied. "Then nothing is wasted. If you've watched this far, say in the comments, what secret do you keep?" The day passed peacefully, with the children coming in and out of Jessica's room, sometimes to talk or read with her, other times simply to be near her while they played or drew. There were no dramatic goodbyes, no traumatic moments, just the gentle presence of a mother with her children, surrounded by the extended family that had formed around them. As evening approached, Jessica asked for a moment alone with Tyler, Lily, and Emma. The others respectfully withdrew, giving them privacy for their final conversation. No one knows what was said in those precious minutes, what wisdom she imparted, what promises were made, what love was expressed one final time. But when the children emerged, there was a calmness to them, a sense of completion rather than abrupt ending. Jessica Mitchell passed peacefully that night with Bear, Valerie, Jamie, and Mark, maintaining a quiet vigil while the children slept nearby. The transition was gentle, a quiet exhalation that signaled the end of pain and the completion of her journey. The steel wolves had prepared for this moment with characteristic thoroughness. When the children woke the next morning, they were met with compassion, clear explanations appropriate to their ages, and immediate reassurance of the continuing support around them. The days that followed were a testament to the community Jessica's story had created. The funeral, arranged according to preferences she had shared with Bear months earlier, was attended not just by the steel wolves who had transformed her family's life, but by hundreds of community members who had been touched by the story of 900 bikers showing up for a mother in need. Tyler, Lily, and Emma were surrounded by a protective circle of adults who balanced respect for their grief with assurance of continuing stability. Jamie and Derek moved into the house as planned, maintaining the children's routines and familiar environment. Mark established a regular visitation schedule, committed to being the father he had failed to be during Jessica's life. The steel wolves, true to their promise, remained present, not as intensively as before, but as a consistent, reliable resource for the family. Bear and Valerie became honorary grandparents, regular Sunday dinners, establishing a tradition that would continue for years to come. As winter gradually yielded to spring, new life emerged in the garden the bikers had created for Jessica. Bulbs she had planted with Emma during her final months pushed green shoots through the soil. The raised beds awaited Lily's artistic touch in selecting flowers for the new season. The repaired back porch stood ready for Tyler's baseball celebrations. 1 year to the day after Jessica had posted her desperate message online, a small gathering took place in the backyard. Not the hundreds who had originally appeared, but the core group who had become family, Bear and Valerie, other key Steel Wolves members, Jamie and Derek, Mark and the children. They planted a tree in Jessica's memory. Not a traditional memorial, but a living legacy that would grow alongside her children. As they worked together, patting soil around the slender trunk, Bear shared a story. "When I first saw Jessica's post, I almost passed it by," he admitted. "We were already helping 3 other families. Resources were stretched thin. But something about her words, the way she focused on her children's needs rather than her own, it reminded me of Cheryl." He looked at Tyler, Lily, and Emma, who were listening intently. "I called 5 members that night. They called 5 more. By morning, 900 bikers had volunteered to show up. Not because they knew your mom, but because her courage in asking for help echoed through our community like a call we couldn't ignore. Mom said you were her angels," Emma said solemnly, clutching her wolf pendant that she had not removed since the ceremony months earlier. "No, little one," Bear corrected gently. "She was ours. She taught us all something about grace, about facing the unimaginable with dignity, about placing love above fear." He looked around at the gathered group. "She thought we came to save her family. In truth, her story has inspired our chapters nationwide to expand support programs for families in crisis. Her legacy extends far beyond this yard." And as the afternoon continued, other stories emerged. Valerie sharing how Jessica's methodical approach to preparing for her children's future had become a template for the Steel Wolves family support program. Jamie describing how Jessica's forgiveness toward Mark had taught her about setting aside judgment for the children's benefit. Mark acknowledging how Jessica's example had made him a better father, even in her absence. If you're enjoying the story, write from which city you're listening to in the comments. When the gathering concluded, the children led everyone inside to show a special project they had been working on with Jamie's help. A memory wall in the living room featuring photographs of Jessica throughout her life, alongside pictures from the 7 months when 900 bikers had become part of their family. At the center was a framed copy of Jessica's original online post, the simple, desperate plea that had set everything in motion. "Single mom with stage 4 cancer needs help for her children. I don't know where else to turn." Beside it hung a patch from a Steel Wolves vest, the wolf's head above crossed wrenches, symbolizing the unexpected answer to that plea. In the years that followed, the Mitchell children grew up surrounded by the unique family Jessica's courage had created. Tyler's baseball talent flourished under the mentorship of Steel Wolves members, eventually earning him a college scholarship. Lily's artistic abilities developed with support from the female riders who had recognized her potential early on. Emma, still carrying her mother's compassionate spirit, became a natural leader among her peers. Jamie and Derek provided the stable home environment Jessica had wanted for her children, while Mark maintained consistent involvement as the father he had finally learned to be. The Steel Wolves remained present through it all, celebrating achievements, supporting through difficulties, ensuring Jessica's children never faced life's challenges alone. On Tyler's high school graduation day, Bear presented him with a special gift, a motorcycle helmet with his name and a subtle wolf design, alongside an offer of riding lessons when he felt ready. "Your mother made me promise not until you were 18, Bear explained with a smile. "And she made me promise proper training and safety gear, always." The Mitchell family's story spread throughout the Steel Wolves network, inspiring similar interventions for families in crisis across the country. What had begun as one chapter's response to a desperate online plea evolved into a structured program called Overnight Angels, mobilizing motorcycle clubs to provide immediate, comprehensive support for families facing terminal illness, tragedy, or sudden loss. Jessica's journal continued to guide her children through life's milestones, her words bridging the years between her passing and their growth into young adults. On Lily's 16th birthday, on Tyler's college departure, on Emma's first day of middle school, each received letters written in those quiet moments when their mother had poured her wisdom and love onto pages they would treasure forever. The tree planted in Jessica's memory grew strong and tall in the backyard of the house that remained their home, its branches providing shade for family gatherings that still included Bear, Valerie, and other steel wolves who had shown up when it mattered most. 5 years after Jessica's passing, the Steel Wolves hosted a special ceremony at their clubhouse, unveiling a memorial wall honoring members who had departed and families who had shaped their mission. At the center was a photograph of Jessica with her children, surrounded by bikers on that first morning when 900 had arrived on her street. The inscription beneath it read simply, "Sometimes angels wear leather. Sometimes courage looks like asking for help. Jessica Mitchell taught us both." Tyler, now a tall young man resembling his mother in both appearance and quiet determination, stood before the gathered club members, his siblings beside him, Jamie and Derek and Mark, forming a supportive semicircle behind them. "Our mother thought she had reached the end of hope when she posted that message," Tyler said, his voice steady. "She couldn't have imagined that overnight 900 bikers would arrive and transform not just our lives, but their own. That her story would inspire a nationwide movement of support for families like ours." He gestured to the photograph. "She worried about leaving us alone in the world. Instead, she left us with the largest, most dedicated extended family any children could imagine. She taught us that family isn't defined by blood, but by who shows up when it matters most." Bear, now showing the additional years in his silver beard and slightly slower gait, joined Tyler at the memorial wall. "The Steel Wolves were founded to protect our own," he said, addressing the assembled members. "Jessica Mitchell reminded us that our own includes anyone in our community who needs protection, support, and love." As the ceremony concluded, the traditional motorcycle procession began, hundreds of bikes preparing to ride in honor of those memorialized on the wall. Tyler, Lily, and Emma were given places of honor, riding with experienced members who had been part of their lives since that first morning. The rumble of engines filled the air, a sound that had once signaled the arrival of unexpected salvation for a desperate mother, and now represented the enduring legacy of a woman whose courage in asking for help had created a ripple effect touching countless lives. 900 bikers had arrived overnight when a Stage 4 mom asked for help. 5 years later, thousands more stood ready across the country, prepared to show up whenever the next call came, carrying forward the simple but profound lesson Jessica Mitchell had taught them all. True strength is found not in facing life's battles alone, but in building a community strong enough to face them together.